I went camping a few months ago. It was just me, wanting to escape my job in IT. I picked a spot deep in a national forest. I set up my tent and lit a small campfire. It felt peaceful at first. The crackling fire mixed with the smell of pine was comforting. I thought this was going to be the perfect escape. Then, around midnight, I heard something in the bushes, a little rustling. My heart began to race. I imagined it was a deer or something harmless. I shrugged it off. I had camped alone many times before and always felt safe. But the chill in the air made me uneasy. That first night passed without real trouble, but the next day was different. I found strange symbols carved into the trees near my campsite. They looked old and unsettling. I didn't recognize them, but they sent chills down my spine. I stood there, staring at those marks, feeling like I was being watched. It was eerie. Later, while I sat by the fire, I thought I heard whispers. Soft sounds carried on the breeze. I strained to catch the words, but they slipped away. I wanted to tell myself it was nothing, just the wind. But fear crept in like a fog. I had never felt this way in the woods before. By the third night, I was jumpy. The air felt electric. It was colder than it should have been, and I hardly slept at all. I imagined shadows moving just beyond the trees. Each time I tried to convince myself I was okay, a knot formed in my stomach. I even thought about packing up and heading home, but something held me there. I felt trapped. As I stared into the flickering flames, the whispers returned. Were they real? Maybe this forest had secrets of its own. I felt like an intruder, and the weight of that feeling pressed down on me. Then, something caught my eye in the dark. A figure. I tried to focus, but as soon as I turned, it vanished. The night seemed deathly still. I was alone, or so I thought. Suddenly, clear as day, I heard a voice say, "Why are you still here?" I jumped. I looked around, but saw no one. My heart raced. Was my mind playing tricks on me? The coldest chill washed over me. I wanted to laugh off the fear, but it stuck in my throat. I didn't know how to feel. Maybe I should have turned back. But there I was, alone in the woods. It felt wrong. I scanned the dark trees, half expecting something to leap out at me. The whispers hung in the air like a bad memory. I never found out what lingered in those woods, but I knew one thing. I would never camp alone again. The next morning, I woke up groggy from lack of sleep. The sunlight filtered through the trees, but it did little to lift my unease. I had hoped the brightness of day would wash away the remnants of the night, but it only highlighted the strange symbols carved into the bark. They seemed even more sinister in daylight. I didn't dare touch them. I packed my things with clumsy hands, my movements quick and jittery. Every sound made me jump, a twig snapping, birds flapping their wings. Even the wind felt charged. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. With my tent folded and my gear slung over my shoulder, I made my way back to the trail. I tried to keep my head up and focus on the beauty around me, but the sense of dread followed me. It was as if the forest itself was alive, pulsing with an energy I couldn't understand. As I walked, I kept glancing back over my shoulder, half expecting to see that figure again. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. The whispers from the night before echoed in my mind, taunting me. "Why are you still here?" The voice lingered like a fog, wrapping around my thoughts. Then, just as I was losing myself in those worries, I spotted something on the ground. It was small and gray, almost blending in with the dirt. I knelt down and realized it was a charm, a small stone carved with one of those same unsettling symbols I had seen on the trees. I picked it up, feeling the cold surface beneath my fingers. That's when I heard it. A low growl, close and menacing. My heart stopped. I glanced around, scanning for the source. The sound seemed to reverberate through the air, taking on a rhythm of its own. I was no longer just a hiker. I felt like prey. With shaky hands, I dropped the charm and scrambled back to my feet. I bolted down the path, the noise of twigs cracking underfoot drowning out everything else. I didn't stop to catch my breath or look back. The trees closed in around me like dark sentinels, watching, waiting. Suddenly, I burst into a clearing. My breath came in sharp gasps as I stumbled to a stop, my heart racing. In front of me stood an old stone structure, half overgrown with vines and moss. It wasn't on any map. I felt my pulse quicken as I stepped closer, curiosity pushing through my fear. But as I reached out to touch the stone, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. It was gone just as quickly as it appeared, but it left a chill running down my spine. The whispers returned, but louder now, a cacophony of voices that seemed to swirl around me. "You shouldn't have come," they hissed. The sense of being trapped washed over me again. I turned to run. I had to get away. But I couldn't shake that feeling. Something was waiting for me behind those trees. The forest wasn't going to let me leave without a fight. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold on to my sanity as I stumbled deeper into the unknown. My heart raced as I darted back toward the safety of the trail. Each footfall echoed in my ears, mixing with the persistent whispers that seemed to wrap around me. I glanced back at the structure, but it was shrouded in shadows now, losing its form like a ghost fading into the mist. Something inside urged me to keep running, but an insatiable curiosity clawed at my mind. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye. A figure, just a silhouette, darted between the trees on the far side of the clearing. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. It looked like a person, but something about their movements was off. They moved too quickly, like they were gliding rather than running. The initial jolt of fear turned into a desperate need for answers. "Hello!" I called out, my voice trembling. No reply, just silence, thick and suffocating. I fought against the urge to bolt again. Instead, I stepped forward, every instinct screaming to turn back. And then I saw it. The charm I had dropped earlier lay shimmering on the ground, now somehow more vibrant. I knelt to pick it up, but as my fingers brushed the stone, the whispers surged again, louder this time, drowning my thoughts. "You mustn't take it." I jerked my hand back as if burned. My heart pounded, a primal urge to flee coursing through me. I felt watched, as if the trees themselves were leaning in, listening. Panic surged within me, and before I knew it, I was sprinting, the clearing disappearing behind me. Branches scratched at my arms and legs, but I didn't feel the pain. All I felt was urgency, a string of instinct driving me forward. I had to find the path out. My mind raced through the sounds of the forest, the rustling leaves, the chirping birds. But then a shadow crossed my vision. I barely caught a glimpse of the figure again, standing just a few feet away, eyes gleaming like a predator's. I skidded to a halt, fear anchoring me in place. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face, twisted in an expression I couldn't decipher. It looked almost human, but it wasn't. The eyes weren't right. They were wild and far too deep, like bottomless pits. "Why are you here?" The voice was gravelly, scratching against the edge of my sanity. "I'm just hiking. I need to get out." I barely stammered, the words tumbling from my lips. "We warned you." It edged closer, and I backed away, my head spinning. I could see the symbols on the figure's skin, faint yet matching those of the trees. A chill coursed through me. This wasn't just a person. It was something else, something bound to those woods. Before it could come any closer, my instincts kicked in again. I turned and ran, though I wasn't sure where I was going anymore. The trail twisted and turned, each bend revealing more shadows and shadows, but I pressed on, feeling a little more frantic with each step. That's when I stumbled onto something unusual. A path illuminated by an eerie glow, the light softly pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't on any map. I hesitated, the whispers growing louder in my head, urging me toward the brightness. But something deep inside me screamed to stay away. With dread sinking in my stomach, I took a cautious step back. But the glow intensified, and before I could even think about fleeing, it flickered out, leaving only darkness behind. And then I heard it again. A low growl, but this time it wasn't distant. It was right behind me. I whipped around, adrenaline surging through my veins, but nothing was there. Just the trees, looming over me like giants ready to strike. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd imagined the growl, some trick of my mind playing against the backdrop of my panic. But then, just as I turned back, The growl sounded again, louder and more urgent. I glanced over my shoulder, my instincts screaming at me to keep moving. But fear had turned my legs heavy. I noticed the ground beneath me was disturbed, like something had been prowling there, its claw marks deep in the damp soil. My heart raced as I realized I wasn't alone. I sprinted deeper into the woods, branches whipped at my face. I desperately searched for anything familiar, but the dense trees enveloped me, twisting my sense of direction. I stumbled over roots, backpedaling through my thoughts, wondering how I'd gotten here in the first place. Then, just ahead, I caught a glimpse of silver glinting in the low light. I slowed, unsure if I could afford another moment of hesitation. As I approached, I realized it was an old compass, cracked but still intact. I picked it up, my gut twisting. When I looked at the needle, it spun wildly, seemingly having no clue which way to point. I felt a sickening dread as my eyes scanned the horizon, searching for an exit. That's when I heard it again, not just a growl this time, but a series of high-pitched yips, almost like a pack was closing in. My skin prickled. I gripped the compass tighter and took off again, each step thudding against the ground, my breath ragged. I needed to find my way out before whatever was hunting me caught up. I forced my focus back on the compass, trying to make sense of its chaotic movements. I had to believe it could still help me. I stumbled onto a narrow path, barely visible in the dark, but the compass needle swung decisively to the east. I took a breath and followed its guidance, each step more deliberate than the last. I thought about the glowing path I had seen earlier, and the whispers urging me towards it. What if that was the way out? But something stopped me. Maybe I was meant to be here, as strange as that felt. Just then, a sound cut through the night. A rustle followed by another growl, much closer this time. I turned, and there they were, silhouettes creeping through the trees, shadows on shadows, moving with an inhuman grace. Their eyes glowed, fierce in the darkness, and I realized I was surrounded. Panic surged as I pivoted to run again, but my path was blocked. I was trapped. Then, I noticed one of the creatures was different. It stood taller, its markings more elaborate, and as it stepped forward, it spoke with that same gravelly voice from earlier. "You've come far, but you don't know what you're seeking." My heart raced. I was trapped, outnumbered, and at their mercy. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The trees seemed to hold their breath. The forest was alive with tension, the quiet before a storm. I suddenly saw the glow in the distance again, pulsing like a heartbeat. I looked back at the creature. Had I really stumbled upon something far worse? Before I could make sense of it, they lunged. I barely had time to react before they lunged at me. I ducked to the side, the air slicing around me as I barely avoided the teeth of the closest creature. Its growl echoed in my ears, primal and hungry. I stumbled backward, spinning around to run. But the path I'd just taken was now a blur, confusion enveloping me. Branches whipped my face as I scrambled away. I didn't know where I was going. Instinct kicked in, urging me to get as far from them as possible. The compass churned uselessly in my hand, its needle still spinning. I had to trust my gut. Suddenly I spotted a fallen log up ahead and darted behind it. I pressed my back against the rough bark, peering out from my hiding place. The creatures were prowling in the circle I had just vacated, their movements eerily synchronized. Whispers carried between them, low and chilling, but the words were lost to me. I couldn't make sense of it. Then, the larger one began to approach, its eyes fixed on me. It was focused, intent. I held my breath, praying it wouldn't see me. The beast paused, nose twitching as if it could pick up on my scent. I could feel my pulse in my throat, tight and frantic. And then, in a moment that felt like it stretched into forever, it turned. The creature glanced back at its companions, and I seized the unexpected opening. I dashed along the log, rolled off it, and landed on the other side. Adrenaline surged, igniting a sprint I didn't know I had left. Branches snagged my clothes as I tore through the underbrush. Every snap of twigs behind me told me they were pursuing. I forced myself to keep running. The glimmer of that eerie light pulsed in the distance, growing brighter. I had to reach it. With each hurried step, I got closer to that glow. I could see it now, some kind of strange fog hovering above the ground, illuminating the space around it. Was it a portal? An escape? Hope kindled within me. I pushed forward, but my fear clawed at me, worry surging that it might also be a trap. "Wait!" I heard a voice call out from behind me, sharp and clear despite the chaos. It wasn't one of the creatures. I skidded to a stop, confusion colliding with panic as I turned to see a figure stepping out from the shadows. A girl with wild hair and determined eyes, her face smeared with dirt. She pointed toward the glow. "This way! Come on!" Before I could even think, my instincts kicked in again, and I trusted her. I rushed toward her, leaving the growls behind. As we reached the mist, I glanced back. The creatures had halted at the edge, their eyes still locking onto us with that same hungry intent. Are they following us?" I gasped, breathless. She took my hand, urgency blazing in her gaze. "No time! We need to keep moving. They can't enter this part of the woods." We plunged into the fog, its cool air wrapping around us like a cloak, and I could barely see beyond a few feet. I had so many questions for her. Who was she, and what were those creatures? But just as I was about to ask, the glow brightened to blinding white, and I felt a jolt. That's when everything went dark. I woke up with a start. My heart raced, and my limbs felt heavy beneath me. Gradually, shapes began to materialize in the dim light. I looked around, panic rising. I wasn't in the forest anymore. Instead, I was lying on a bed of soft moss inside a cave. The glow I had seen before now, a gentle light emanating from the walls. Where am I?" I mumbled, still disoriented. The girl from before was crouched nearby, her wild hair cascading around her face. She stared at me, as if making sure I really was awake. "You're safe for now. The mist, it brought you here." I sat up slowly, taking in my surroundings. The cave was unlike anything I had seen. Strange crystals protruded from the walls, pulsing with the same eerie light. I could hear water dripping somewhere in the distance, and the air felt cool and refreshing. "Who are you?" I finally managed to ask. "What's happening?" "I'm Lyra," she said, her voice steady. "Those creatures you saw, they're called shadows. This cave is a refuge, but only for a time." I felt a chill run through me. Why can't they come in here? What do they want? Lyra shifted, her expression growing serious. "They are drawn to fear and darkness. They can sense it, and they feed on it. That's why they didn't follow us into the mist. But they'll wait. They always wait." Her words stirred a deep fear inside me. The thought of those creatures lurking nearby, just waiting for me to step outside, made my skin crawl. "What do we do now?" I asked, suddenly feeling overwhelmed. Her eyes narrowed at me, and something shifted in the atmosphere. "Now you need to help me. I can't do it alone." "Help you with what?" I was cautiously curious, but also wary. "The crystals," she said, pointing toward a cluster of glimmering stones nearby. "They hold power, but they need to be activated. If we can harness that energy, we can find a way to keep the shadows at bay." I hesitated. The idea of handling something so strange was intimidating. But how do I even do that? She stood up, brushing the moss from her knees. "You have to trust me, feel the energy, don't be afraid." "Easier said than done," I replied, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. But I nodded and walked over to the crystals. They glimmered and pulsed like a heartbeat. As I reached out, a warmth spread through my fingertips, but uncertainty clawed at me. My heart raced again, and I felt the shadows whispering around the cave, taunting me with visions of darkness and confusion. "Close your eyes," Lyra instructed. "Breathe, and think of the light. Focus on that feeling." As I shut my eyes, the brightness behind my eyelids danced like fireflies. I remembered the fear from before, but also the relief of escaping. I thought about the strength I found in trusting Lyra, and I felt a surge of energy course through me. Then I opened my eyes, and that's when I saw it. The crystal before me glowed even brighter, shifting the air around us. A rumble sounded from deeper in the cave. The shadows began to stir. I looked at Lyra, panic hitting me like a punch. "What's happening?" "It's working, but we need more," she shouted over the rumbling. I could feel them creeping closer, their whispers filling the air. Fear settled deep in my chest again. But this time, something was different. I wasn't just afraid, I was determined to fight back. "Let's do this," I said, more to myself than her, and I reached out to the crystal again, ready to face whatever came next. The moment I reached for the crystal, the energy surged through me even faster. Light exploded around the cave, filling the shadows with flickers of brightness. For a brief moment, I felt invincible. But then, the rumbling grew louder, and the shadows pressed closer, their dark forms swirling just beyond the edge of the illuminated area. "Keep going," Lyra urged, her voice strained with urgency. "Focus on the energy." I grit my teeth and closed my eyes again. I was terrified, but I couldn't let that fear control me. I imagined the warmth spreading through the cave, illuminating every dark corner. I pictured the shadows shrinking back, afraid of the light. The vibrations around me intensified. I could feel the ground shifting slightly beneath my feet. It was as if the cave was alive, reacting to the energy we were generating. Just as I thought I might lose my grip, a loud crash echoed through the cave. "What was that?" I yelled, my heart sinking. "The shadows are trying to break through," Lyra replied, her voice stronger than before. "We have to make the light bigger." My hands pulsed against the crystal, and I thought about everything I had left outside this cave. My home, my family, everything that gave me strength. I focused on them, willing the light to expand. Suddenly, a flash erupted from the crystal. A beam of light shot up into the cave, illuminating the entire space. But the shadows shrieked and twisted, writhing in protest. What had once been an eerie darkness was now filled with angry shapes, twisting and curling, desperate to escape the light. "It's working!" Lyra shouted, her eyes wide. "Hold it! Don't let it fade!" But the shadows surged back, hungrily advancing toward us. I could see their grotesque features now, twisted faces and claw-like appendages reaching out, trying to grab hold of the light. I stumbled back, fear surging once more as some part of me whispered that I couldn't withstand this. "Lyra, I can't!" I cried, panic rising again. "You can!" she insisted, stepping closer to me. "You're doing it! Just think of the light!" Then I heard it. A voice, soft and insidious, creeping into my mind. "You're not strong enough. You'll never escape." The chill of its words gripped my heart. I felt myself wavering, doubt creeping in as the shadows pressed closer. The cave walls trembled, and I feared that the light might go out at any moment. "No," I whispered, squeezing my eyes shut against the darkness threatening to engulf me. "I have to fight." I remembered what had brought me here. The determination to survive, the hope to escape this nightmare. I envisioned the light as a protective shield, strong and unyielding. I reached deeper inside myself, pulling at that strength I didn't know I possessed. With a fierce shout, I thrust my hands forward. "Leave us!" The words exploded from my lips, and the light burst forth again. It was like a second wave. Blazing and brighter than before, it surged through the cave. But the shadows howled even louder, a deafening chorus of fury. I stumbled back, and as I did, there was a sudden dark flurry, a figure darting through the shadows, weaving in and out like a living smoke. "Lyra, look out!" I screamed, but it was too late. A sudden rush of cold air swept through the cave, and with it, that figure lunged, straight toward Lyra. Just as it reached her, the crystal flickered, and darkness consumed the area around us. I felt the energy start to wane. "Lyra!" I shouted. But the darkness swallowed her cry. The light around me flickered, and then everything went black. I don't know how long I stood in that suffocating darkness, but it felt like an eternity. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes, but nothing changed. My heart raced as panic gripped me. I was all alone now, and the shadows were closing in. "Lyra!" I called again, my voice trembling. "Can you hear me?" Silence answered, thick and oppressive. My breath quickened, and I could barely think straight. I needed to regain control, find the crystal again. My hands brushed against the cold, rough stone floor, searching blindly. I could feel an echoing pulse beneath my palm, the faint, flickering energy of the crystal glimmering just out of reach. I grasped it tightly, and warmth surged through me again, but it wasn't enough. The beam of light that had once filled the cave was gone, and the shadows crept closer, wrapping around me like tendrils of ice. With every second, the chilling whispers grew louder in my mind. "You'll never escape." "No!" I shouted defiantly, clutching the crystal tighter. I pushed all my will into it, concentrating, searching for Lyra, for that spark that had initially given me strength. The shadows stiffened for a brief moment, and I felt a pulse of hope, but they quickly retaliated, a wave of darkness crashing against me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flicker of light, soft and steady. It danced in the distance, like a candle struggling against a storm. I squinted, trying to focus, then realized it was coming from the tunnel on the far side of the cave. I took a deep breath and moved towards it, every step heavy with dread. Shadows lunged, snapping at my heels, but I pressed on. With every ounce of courage, I forced the light to grow brighter, illuminating the path ahead. As I got closer to the opening, I saw a figure silhouetted against the light. Relief coursed through me. "Lyra, is that you?" I called out. "No!" The voice was sharp, cutting through the warmth of the light. It was low and gravelly, unlike Lyra's. "You shouldn't be here." The shadows trembled, pulling back slightly as I halted in my tracks. I strained to get a better look, but the figure remained obscured. An overwhelming sensation of dread washed over me. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. I was terrified, but I couldn't show it. I needed answers. "I am the guardian of the shadows," it replied, "and you have trespassed where light should not tread." "What do you want?" I took a tentative step back, my grip tightening around the crystal as the shadows began to swirl in reaction. "Your power is stronger than I anticipated," it said, almost with a hint of admiration. "But it will not last. You must choose. Surrender to the shadows, or continue this foolish fight." I hesitated, fear clawing at my insides. "I won't give up," I yelled defiantly, trying to push away the invading doubts. "Then your fate is sealed," the guardian rasped. At that moment, the ground shook violently. The shadows surged forward, drawn to my defiance. I had a split second to make a choice. I could either flee back into the pressing darkness or take a stand against this creature. This was it. I couldn't afford to lose. "Lyra, I'll find you!" I screamed, charging towards the figure bathed in light, hoping against hope that I wasn't too late. But as I rushed forward, I realized the light was starting to fade around me. The shadows were clawing at my heels, and their whispers grew louder. "Everything that you cherish will belong to the darkness." And then I felt it, an icy grip around my ankle. I stumbled, falling to the ground as the shadows closed in. My heart raced with pure, unrelenting fear. I couldn't fail now. Not when it mattered most. That's when I saw it. A flash of silver glinting through the shadows, a possible way out, or a trap set by the guardian. I had to choose fast. I lunged for the glinting silver, my fingers grazing its cool surface, just as the shadows tightened their grasp around me. Panic surged, but I focused on that single point of light. It was a small dagger, its blade reflecting the little light that remained in the cave. Grabbing it, I felt a new surge of determination. "Get away from me!" I shouted, brandishing the dagger towards the swirling darkness. The movement surprised the shadows momentarily, causing them to pull back just enough for me to regain my stance. "Foolish child!" the guardian spat. "You think a mere weapon can save you?" But I couldn't let its taunts shake me. I remembered Lyra. I had to find her. "Where is she?" I demanded. "Tell me." The guardian laughed, a chilling sound that echoed around me. "You are lost, and she is far beyond your reach. The shadows have her now." My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. With every ounce of power I felt surging through me from the crystal and the dagger. I aimed the blade at the heart of the shadows swirling around me. "No!" The guardian's voice changed, frantic. The shadows shrieked, as if my determination could physically hurt them. "You can't do this!" I didn't hesitate. I thrust the dagger forward, aiming for the mass of darkness, channeling my fear and sadness for my friend into that single, desperate movement. As the blade entered the shadows, a brilliant light exploded from its tip. The shadows recoiled, writhing and twisting like a wounded creature. In that moment of chaos, I caught sight of a small opening at the back of the cave, illuminated by the power of the dagger. My instincts kicked in. I couldn't waste any time. I dashed towards the opening, dodging tendrils of shadow that lashed out at me like hungry vipers. "Stop her!" the Guardian roared, but the shadows seemed to hesitate, knowing that they were no match for the radiant energy coming from the dagger. I sprinted through the opening, my heart pounding in rhythm with the energy pulsing from the blade. As I emerged, I found myself in another cavern, this one flickering with soft blue light. Glowing crystals adorned the walls, casting an ethereal glow. There, in the center, stood Lyra. She appeared dazed but intact, surrounded by a circle of shimmering light. Relief flooded through me, but it quickly mixed with confusion. "Lyra!" I gasped, racing towards her. But before I could reach her, a barrier flared from the light. I slammed into it, feeling the impact reverberate through me. "What's happening?" I cried. "Don't come any closer," she shouted, her voice trembling. "It's a trap. The Guardian is trying to use me as bait." A wave of dread washed over me. I thought I had saved her, but I had only placed us at the Guardian's mercy. The crystal in my hand pulsed, and the dagger's energy felt unstable. Yet even as panic threatened to overwhelm me, something deep inside pushed me forward. I had another choice to make. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions, not now. "Lyra, hold on," I shouted, preparing to channel everything I had into the dagger once more. I needed to break that barrier, or we would both be lost. As I focused on the light, fragments of shadow began creeping towards me again. It hit me. This wasn't just about escape. The Guardian wanted to keep us apart for a reason. I had to act fast, or we would be trapped here forever. I raised the dagger high above my head, ready to strike one last blow against the shadows. But the Guardian's voice echoed ominously through the cavern. "You cannot win. The darkness always prevails." And that's when everything around me began to shake violently again, foreboding a new threat as the cave itself seemed to respond to the Guardian's command. My heart pounded in my chest as the ground shook beneath me. The cave trembled violently, and I could see cracks spreading through the walls. The shadows swirled hungrily around us, growing bolder, drawn to the chaos. "Lyra!" I shouted, desperate to reach her. "Stay strong! I'm coming for you!" "I can't hold on for long," she cried. Her voice, barely audible over the rumbling safety of the cave, began to fade, its luminescence dimming. Panic shot through me as I seized the dagger, feeling the energies within it pulsate with my heartbeat. I had to act, had to make a final stand against this unseen enemy. As I took a breath, clarity washed over me. I didn't just wield a weapon. I was a part of this fight, and I would be the light that cut through the darkness. My focus sharpened, and I felt the pulse of energy surging through both the dagger and the crystal. I couldn't let fear rule me anymore. Harnessing that strength, I aimed the dagger at the center of the dark mass, shouting, "I won't let you win!" At once, a blinding light erupted from the dagger, illuminating the cavern like a supernova. The shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing as the radiance pushed them back. The bright light danced along the walls, illuminating once hidden symbols, and filling every corner with hope. For the first time in what felt like ages, I could feel the shadows recoil, as if burned. "Now, Lyra!" I yelled. "You have to join me. Focus on the light." The barriers around her flickered like candle flames as she locked her gaze on me. Determination etched across her face. "Help me break free." I closed my eyes and poured every ounce of energy from deep within into the dagger. The shadows ebbed, and a beam of light shot forth in an arc, striking the barrier surrounding Lyra. The barrier shimmered, and I could see her extending her hand towards the light, drawing strength from it. I felt a powerful connection. Was it her energy merging with mine? I pushed harder, urged on by the knowledge that we couldn't fail. We had to break through together. Suddenly, the barrier cracked, the barrier breaking apart to reveal Lyra. She stumbled out and straight into my arms, the warmth of our connection solidifying the victory within that moment. But it was fleeting. The cave quaked again, and I sensed the Guardian's presence intensifying. "You think you can escape? You dare challenge the darkness?" "Together," I breathed, looking into Lyra's eyes. "Together," she echoed. We raised the dagger in unison, channeling our combined fears, hopes, and light into it. The shadows screeched and writhed around us, but they were growing weaker, fought against our newfound unity. We pushed the light forward, forcing the darkness to the very edges of the cave. "I can't hold this for much longer," Lyra panted, sweat glistening on her brow. "Just a bit more," I urged, feeling the pressure of time closing in. The shadows were still fighting, dark tendrils arching towards us as if they wanted to extinguish our light. "Believe in it." With one final yell, we thrust the dagger forward into the cavern's heart. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the darkness. The light erupted once again, engulfing everything, swallowing the shadows whole and illuminating the cave in a radiant blaze. For a moment, it felt like the world paused. Then, with a final shriek, the darkness shattered, ripping itself apart as the shadows crumbled into wisps, scattered away like ashes in the wind. The cave trembled around us as peace settled, and a surreal calmness enveloped the chamber, glowing softly in the aftermath. The glow waned slowly, and I found myself wrapped in an embrace of gentle warmth. Lyra held onto me tightly, and I could feel her heartbeat, steady and calming, mingling with mine. "What just happened?" I whispered, disbelief settling in. "I think we did it," she replied, breathless. But as we shared a brief moment of relief, a nagging uncertainty crept back in. That sinister voice reverberated in my mind, lingering just beyond the edges of my thoughts. Would the darkness merely bide its time, waiting for a moment of weakness to make its next move? We stepped cautiously toward the cave exit, hearts still racing. As we emerged into the sunlight, everything felt simultaneously liberating and heavy. The forest seemed brighter, yet I could sense a shadow still lurking, buried somewhere deep within my mind. "I don't think it's over," I said quietly, glancing back at the cave's entrance. Lyra nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "Neither do I. But at least we're free, for now." With those words, I couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that still clung to me, like a whisper of the darkness that could return when least expected. The peril might be over, but the questions lingered like a mist in the trees. We walked on together, leaving the shadows behind us, but their echoes remained, a reminder of what we had faced and what still lay ahead. I glanced back at the cave one last time, wondering if we had truly escaped, or if it would always hold a part of us. Life would go on, but the forest remained, a place that hid secrets both exhilarating and terrifying, leaving me uneasy as I tried to piece together what had just transpired. I might never know for certain if the shadows would return, or if they were merely figments of my fear. But one thing was clear. I would never look at nature the same way again.